Hello. Today we are to talk about the Elizabethan theatre. The theatre could hold 3,000 people, and it was a round, open-air theatre with a roof over the stage in case the weather was really bad and the actors needed to be covered up. Below the stage there was a stage trap, which was used in the plays as a sort of hell, and the plays the actors were only male, and there were no breaks because the audience back then wasn't expected to look away or ignore what was happening on the stage. On the stage there were no props or scenery, which means that the actors had to describe where they were, but they would only describe it if the location had some sort of a symbolic meaning. There were different groups of audience in the theatre. There were the groundlings, who were like a group of people who stood on the yard, which means they had no seats, they had to stand up, and these were the lower class. And the higher classes, or the richer people, could sit down on the balconies. The audience back then was a part of the play, which means they could disturb the play if they were bored or they thought something annoying would happen or something, and they had a very different behavior from the audience today.
Back then the audience was impolite, disrespectful, and they were interrupting. Today we are much different, and we know how much effort the actors use and how much time they use for the play. The manners, they didn't have any because they kept interrupting, and if they didn't like the play, they would leave and they would come late, and they didn't care about how much time they used for the actual play. Today we are capable of restraining ourselves, which means that if we think it's really boring, we would keep at the play and watch it even though it's boring. And and because of the audience kept interrupting, the message wouldn't be as clear as it is today. And the actors would also be more committed today because of the not interrupting audience, which was the problem back then.
The audience back then were also a bit more entertained than today, we think, because they were able to take the play anywhere that they could, they were able to disturb the play and interrupt it, and because of the lack of props and scenery, they could be in a jungle or on the beach, and they wouldn't have to need any props or sand or whatever, so it was less limiting than today, because today we have to show everything because we are able to, but we don't want to imagine it all ourselves. And also the actors had a lot wider, they could do whatever they wanted. They could, because the audience would always believe that they were in a jungle or whatever. But we think that back then it was more chaotic than now, because you could suddenly forget where they were and you had no chance to get back to the play because, So I guess that's what we wanted to say for today. Thank you for listening.